Kathleen Kane, former Pennsylvania Attorney General, is sentenced to prison. Norristown, PA. The brief, unlikely political career of Kathleen G. Kane, Pennsylvania's brightest rising star when she was elected state attorney general less than 4 years ago, came to a humiliating close on Monday, when a judge sentenced her to 10 to 23 months in prison for her conviction on charges of perjury and abuse of her office. Ms. Kane, 50, rose to power as a Democratic outsider with no political experience, growing to shake to its foundations the state's male-dominated, corruption-prone political establishment that she mocked as the Harrisburg Old Boys. At times she succeeded, forcing the ouster of state Supreme Court justices, prosecuting government officials, and clashing repeatedly with one of her predecessors, Tom Corbett, the Republican who had become governor. But she soon created a scandal of her own, fueled by abuse of power and sensitivity to criticism, illegally leaking grand jury records in an attempt to discredit a critic, and then lying about it to a different grand jury. In August, the Court of Common Pleas jury here found her guilty of 2 felony perjury charges and 7 misdemeanor counts, forcing her to resign from office. Before the hearing, Ms. Kane, wearing a black pantsuit and a white blouse, greeted supporters with hugs and smiles as they entered a Montgomery County courthouse here, and then, looking confident, chatted with her lawyers in the courtroom. But while testifying at the sentencing hearing, she broke down in tears, pleading with the judge to consider her 2 teenage sons. "Maybe I deserve everything I get, they don't," she said. "I am not going to ask for your mercy because I don't care about me anymore." Called to testify on her behalf, her son Chris, 15, said, "My mom is my rock. We just know that we can lose our mom." But prosecutors played video of Ms. Kane saying on the day after her conviction that she had no regrets about her life or career. She faced a maximum sentence of 12 to 24 years in prison, but her lawyers had argued that the loss of her career and public reputation were punishment enough, and that she should not be locked up. But in imposing a prison sentence, Judge Wendy Dimchick Alloy said, "Any lesser sentence than total confinement will absolutely depreciate the seriousness of the crime. A violation of this magnitude and severity is an extraordinary abuse of the system," the judge told Ms. Kane, who had no visible reaction. Ms. Kane, a daughter of a janitor and a secretary, grew up in Scranton, graduated from the University of Scranton and Temple University Law School, and returned to Scranton to become an assistant district attorney, specializing in prosecuting sex crimes. She married Christopher Kane, whose family owns a successful trucking business. Now, she and her husband are separated and in divorce proceedings. When she began her 2012 run for Attorney General, she was considered a long shot, virtually unknown in political circles. But Mr. Kane put more than $2 million into his wife's campaign, and she defeated the former congressman in the Democratic primary, and a county district attorney in the general election. Ms. Kane emphasized her status as the outsider and the only woman in the race. She charged that Governor Corbett, when he was Attorney General, had dragged his feet for years in pursuing the state's most prominent scandal, the child molestation case against Jerry Sandusky, an assistant coach in Penn State University's beloved football program, who was eventually convicted. After taking office in January 2013, she started an investigation into the Sandusky case. It did not find any misconduct in the way the case was handled, but it uncovered thousands of emails sent by state officials with pornographic, racist or sexist content. As Ms. Kane's only real fortune deteriorated over the last 2 years, she released one bombshell trove of emails after another, forcing the resignations of 2 state Supreme Court justices and some officials who had worked in the Attorney General's office under Mr. Corbett. It was one of several ways that she did battle with the state's mostly Republican establishment, which at first earned her widespread praise as well as condemnation. In just her first few months in office, she rejected Mr. Corbett's plan to privatize management of the state lottery. Despite intense pressure from the governor, she refused to have her office defend the state's ban on gay marriage in court. She offered only the lukewarm defense of a voter identification law that a court eventually struck down, and she exposed corruption at the State Turnpike Commission. She also gave a promotion to her twin sister, who had worked for years in the Attorney General's office, prompting accusations of nepotism. In those first months, she also shut down a secret sting case that had started under Mr. Corbett, and had recorded for state legislators and a judge, all Democrats from Philadelphia, accepting illegal gifts. A year later, when the Philadelphia Inquirer revealed that the operation had taken place and that Ms. Kane had shut it down, she faced claims of partisan favoritism. Ms. Kane said that the cases were mismanaged and were too weak to prosecute. Local prosecutors later proved her wrong, winning convictions against 4 of the 5 officials. Her actions led to a feud with Frank G. the former top state prosecutor who had overseen both the sting operation and the Sandusky case. Seeking to undercut Mr. Fien, Ms. Kane leaked to the Philadelphia Daily News information about a grand jury investigation he had been involved in, the leak that would lead to the criminal investigation of her actions. Ms. Kane developed a reputation for trying to intimidate critics, and described herself as a victim of the entrenched boys' club she was threatening. Eric Olson, chief of the Criminal Prosecution Division in the Attorney General's office, who was called Monday as a prosecution witness, described a campaign of systemic firings and espionage. "She created a terror zone in this office," he said. John Hurdle reported from Norristown, and Richard Perez Pina from New York.